Okay, this is a book review. The name of the book is Brain Gate. It's about the blood-brain barrier. I show you this painting here of Rome in their decadence. It's relevant to the talk. So basically, the Romans, as they were sort of collapsing down, they had a lot of people with cognitive impairment due to lead poisoning. The symbol for lead is PB, like plum, as in plumbism, like a plumber, because they used to have lead pipes and they would have lead wine containers. And that caused some cognitive impairment and bad behavior in the Romans. Plus, you know, paganism, etc. as well. But there it is. Okay. So here is the book, Brain Gate. You know, it's a decent book. The reason I bought it is the guy was a toxicologist, and I thought that might be interesting. The book was written about 2003, so it's a little bit out of date. I think it was a very good book for 2003, but I actually wouldn't recommend you buy it. It's just not meticulous and detailed enough and up to date enough. I would also say, in my opinion, I consider it a mistake. He's writing like an average person, and I don't think you should do that. The reason I say that is most people don't read. Only pretty smart people read. So if you're going to write to really smart people, then you should write at their level, because I think he oversimplifies things a bit. But it was still decent. Like I said, for 2003, a book by a toxicologist, it was pretty good. Brain diseases became common after the industrial age. Parkinson first described 1817. Multiple sclerosis 1868. Alzheimer's 1906. Chronic fatigue syndrome 1985. He talks about how PCBs in the water can lower IQ. That was interesting. The brain needs a blood-brain barrier to maintain the microenvironment around the neurons so they can function effectively. They need very precise ionic gradients. Psychological stress can weaken the blood-brain barrier. High-fat meals can weaken the blood-brain barrier. So you always want a good blood-brain barrier, because if the blood-brain barrier is not working, stuff that belongs in the blood not getting into the brain can get into the brain. Monosodium glutamate diets are associated with markedly increased obesity. And there's always in the center of the brain these things called circumventricular organs that are chemosensors, and chemicals can get access to them even with a fully intact blood-brain barrier because they don't have a blood-brain barrier, and can do some damage there and potentially percolate to adjacent areas. Hypertension can also weaken the blood-brain barrier. We talked about cataracts. That was a little bit interesting. The main thing to know about cataracts is that dairy and tobacco are big promoters, and diabetes. So a lot of people have all three of those. Ultraviolet light can also contribute to them. You know, poor nutrition makes everything worse because the body's less able to heal itself. Contact lens could be in a preservative solution that's toxic to the... Okay, when you're talking about the blood-brain barrier, what are you talking about? So here's red blood cells going through a capillary. They're about 7 microns. Capillary is about 5 microns. They got to deform a little bit to pass through there. The capillary has a basement membrane. There's some collagenous-like ligaments, fibrous tissue, and there is the vascular smooth muscles. You know, and so anyways, for the chemicals from the blood to get to the neuron, they got to pass through the blood-brain barrier right in here. Okay, so in the brain, there's all tight junctions, so nothing should get through there unless it's supposed to, you know, like oxygen, glucose, for example. Okay, here's where it'll start getting a little more interesting, is that what I found really interesting when I first learned this was that the same dietary fiber that the gut bacteria convert into short-chain fatty acids, that same short-chain fatty acid, butyrate, it's 4 carbons. That's why it's a short chain, because it's only got 4 carbons. Typical fat in the human body is like palmitate with 16 carbons. So butyrate comes from, like, the root name is butane, 4-carbon alkane in organic chemistry. All right, so anyways, butyrate is a 4-carbon carboxylic acid. It is used by the gut lining cells to make tight junctions. So these are the tight junctions between the endothelial cells of the blood-brain barrier. So what I'm saying is you need that fiber so the gut bacteria can make them into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. The butyrate goes in the blood, goes up to the blood-brain barrier, and then it's used by the endothelial cells of the blood-brain barrier to make tight junctions. So if you don't have enough dietary fiber, you not only mess up your intestinal gut layer, you get leaky gut, increased intestinal permeability, you also get increased blood-brain barrier permeability, and you don't want that because you can start messing up your ionic gradients and you start getting, like a little cognitive fog. There's 0 fiber in animal foods, there's 0 fiber in oils. Here's another article about short-chain fatty acids. Help to maintain the blood-brain barrier. So here's short-chain fatty acid maintaining the blood-brain barrier. And you want that because if you break down that blood-brain barrier, toxic chemicals go from the blood to the brain and other bad things that you don't want. Here it is. Western diets induce blood-brain barrier leakage and alter spatial strategies in rats because the high-fat diets cause increased blood-brain barrier permeability. Not good. That's why I always laugh when all these people try to tell me, oh, the paleo, keto, carnivore diets are so good. Yeah, right. They're not good for your blood-brain barrier. They're not good for your arteries. They're not good for diabetes. They're not good for hypertension. They're not good for atherosclerosis, and those are the most important diseases. That's what everybody has. We talked about this before. If you told me, 60-year-old patient in the hospital, I would not even look at the chart. It's a safe assumption. Pre-diabetic or diabetic, hypertensive, coronary artery disease, impotence, okay, poor dentition, cognitively slow. Okay. Oh, and I do think people are getting stupider just because, there's so many distractions on the internet that you don't need to pay attention to anything. What's a Twitter message, just 140 characters or whatever. Versus in the old days, people would routinely read these giant books. It was routine to have triple-decker novels, 500 to 1,200 pages. I'm currently reading Gone with the Wind, and I don't even know how many pages the paper version of it is, but I know the audio CD version is 49 audio CDs. Okay, that's a lot. Actually, it's 41 audio CDs, 49 hours long. That's a lot. Okay, that's an entire month of working every single day. A lot of listening. Okay, people used to read, Les Miserables, 1,200 pages, Brothers Karamazov, 800 pages, Anna Karenina, 600 pages, A Tale of Two Cities by Dickens, 400 pages. By the way, I've read all these books. All of them except for Anna Karenina, I read with the, and I read Les Mis too. But I listened to the audio versions of them. I love listening to audio versions. I got nothing else to do when I'm commuting in a car. So anyways, I'm just saying, how many people are going to read one of these big books? Okay. And I had young people say things to me like, oh, nowadays all the young people got attention deficit. That's not good. In order to do significant intellectual achievement, you need sustained attention. Okay, hippocampal function is impaired by high-fat diet in mice with causing increased blood-brain barrier permeability. When you eat a high-fat diet, you get decreased memory and decreased mood. So this has been shown repeatedly in mice. It's not good. And it causes leaky gut too. There's no fiber in animal foods. Okay, here's something else sort of similar. Mouse fed a high-fat diet causes decreased memory after just one day. So it doesn't take long. Plus you're causing insulin resistance, predisposing yourself to diabetes. Okay, these two over here, Douglas Kell and Hatherill Pretorius have done great work. She's from South Africa, he's from England, and they've done great work figuring out amyloid clotting. The fibrinogen gets distorted by the bacterial endotoxins, postprandial endotoxins, LPS and LTA, and then it clots. Instead of clotting smoothly like pieces of spaghetti, they form these dense matted deposits that are more difficult to lyse. They're refractory to lysis, so to speak. And they can plug up small vessels, the microvasculature in the heart or in the brain, potentially, and cause, ischemia. So this is Douglas Kell, Hatherill Pretorius, the way that they believe that this phenomenon of leaky gut is related to causing dementia. They talk about, leaky gut causing postprandial endotoxemia, even postprandial bacteremia. They talk about bacteria staining the blood for a prolonged amount of time and becoming dormant, being reactivated when the person has increased free iron in the blood, due to liver damage or some other sort of tissue damage. But it can be very thrombogenic. It's an interesting comment. It's an interesting thing, this concept of amyloidogenic clotting in the blood. I gave entire previous lectures about it, but it's worth knowing. Okay, electromagnetic fields regulate calcium medium sulfate of cells. We talked about this in my recent lecture. You open up with EMF, electromagnetic force and fields. You'll open up voltage-gated calcium channels. You will also open up the TRPV1 vanilloid channels to let more calcium into the cytoplasm, and that'll activate cells, neurons to do whatever they do. Cell phones cause increased blood-brain barrier permeability. So that's a big statement, okay? This guy, Leif Salford, was sort of the key investigator on that. Anything that opens up the blood-brain barrier can cause a lot of problems for the brain. And cell phones do that. Okay, here's some other papers along these lines. Alan Frey also figured out a lot of this stuff. In peak power applied, the peak power applied is often more significant than the average power uses. In many cases, pulse fields effects are not found with continuous fields. So the pulsatile waves are worse. And these can cause changes in behavior and other problems. So it's a significant thing. Permeability of blood-brain barrier at different frequencies, and it said the results show albumin leakage. That's a blood protein in 56 out of 184 animals, so a little bit less than a third. Continuous wave was even more positive findings. Oh, less than this one. All right, anyways, after cell phone usage, increased albumin crossing the blood-brain barrier, so causing increased blood-brain barrier. You don't want to hold your cell phone to your head. Just use a speakerphone. Better have devices like computers hardwired than Wi-Fi. Okay, investigation. Mitochondria are toxic. Cell phone microwave decreases the mitochondrial inner mitochondrial membrane voltage gradient, and it can also cause apoptosis. So that's pretty bad. Oh, that's just from microwaves, because cell phones are a low-power microwave transmitter. Okay, effects of electromagnetic field exposure on antioxidant defense system, oxidative stress if it occurs. EMF will increase free radicals, from oxidative stress. It'll cause it. You need a lot of energy, so you need your mitochondria working well. These are all the things that inhibit mitochondria. We talked about that in other lectures, but it's a lot of common things. You get antioxidants from plants. On a hot, sunny day, 100 degrees outside, the plant's got to sit there and protect himself with chemicals. The person can just walk under the tree. Okay, I think that's all I got. Let's see here. Yep. I'm still not in the right one. Here's the right one, I think. Sorry about that. I think, okay, here it is. I got maybe 2 more slides. All right, rats increase albumin crossing the blood-brain barrier. That was in response to cell phone, okay? Another one, early cell phone causes more emotional instability in people and hyperactivity. Okay, so that's the end. I hope that was useful and interesting to you. And so we made a couple points about the blood-brain barrier. The key thing to get out of it is what causes leaky gut will also tend to cause leaky blood-brain barrier. And it's also in the opposite direction. What causes leaky blood-brain barrier, like in trauma, tends to cause leaky gut or in a stroke. And what I'm saying is, and this is where I wrote that I had corrected the management of these patients. And I told the neurologist that I know that, look, you want to make sure you're getting these patients adequate fiber intake to help protect the blood-brain barrier and, of course, to protect the gut barrier. So anyways, I thought that was interesting.